Looking for a thoughtful gift for someone in your life? Or maybe a little something for you? Introducing Symbiotica, pure science-backed supplements that actually deliver what your body needs. Try the Vanilla Cream Magnesium L-threonate to calm your nervous system and improve focus throughout the day. Or the Liposomal Glutathione to support anti-aging and gut health. Go to Symbiotica.com/Rach to get 20% off plus free shipping. That's Symbiotika.com/Rach for 20% off plus free shipping. I'm a sneaker kind of girl. I love comfortable shoes, but I also want them to look cute. The New Balance 1080 is that versatile go-to sneaker that's ready for anything. I wear them to the gym, I wear them out on jogs, I wear them around the town to go get groceries, I do it all. You get the perfect mix of comfort and performance, so you're covered from coffee runs to race day. Runners love that cushion midsole because it's got their back, or, well, actually their feet. But basically, it's this giant, cushiony, beautiful marshmallow shoe. Doesn't make sense until you put it on your feet, and then you're like, oh, yeah, Rach, this is just like walking in a marshmallow. Ready to upgrade your kicks? Shop the 1080 now at newbalance.com.
You have the chance of waking up out of the pattern and actually making a choice to say, okay, I want to be a fully evolved human being. I want to be able to be fully close to another person, and I want to be completely my own person too. Mm-hmm. And it's possible to have both of those things. It just takes a lot of work and dedication to both of them.
Hey guys, it's Rach. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you're here with us today. And I have a favor, which sounds kind of harsh if we just met, but I'm assuming that most of you have been a part of this community for a hot minute. And so I gotta ask, are you subscribed to the podcast? Subscribing to the podcast you listen to regularly is one of the best things that you can do for hosts like me. It helps to support the show and the staff that works on it. It ensures that you never miss an episode when we drop a new one. And here's the cool thing about subscribing. If you do it and then you hate this show, just unsubscribe. It's one click away. In the meantime, if you're listening, we would so appreciate it if you would just tap that button and make it official. Hey friends, welcome back to the show. Today we're diving into one of the most requested topics from this community, relationships. Not just romantic love, but the kind of deep, honest connection we all crave. The kind of relationships that feel like home. This is a MasterMind episode, which means I've pulled together powerful moments from some of the best conversations I've had about love, intimacy, and emotional connection. It's called Love, Sex, and Real Connection, creating relationships that actually work. Let me tell you, these voices bring real talk. Emily Nagoski is the author of Come As You Are. She breaks down the science of desire and why emotional safety is the key to intimacy. Emily Morse, sex educator and host of Sex with Emily, shares practical, no-shame advice for communication, connection, and pleasure. And Katie and Gay Hendricks, relationship psychologists and married for over 40 years, offer tools for navigating conflict, deepening love, and creating lasting joy. Whether you're single, partnered, or somewhere in between, this conversation is for anyone who wants to feel more connected, more seen, and more secure in their relationships.
On the day you're born, people look at your genital package and they go, it's a girl. They fit you into a box that my sister and I call human giver syndrome, where you are taught that your moral obligation is to be pretty, happy, yet calm, generous, and unfailingly attentive to the needs of others.
Wow. Yep.
Which shows up in a lot of domains of our lives, but let's just think now how it shows up in our sexuality. That means even if you feel totally great about your sexual connection with someone, if you're doing things with someone and they're touching you in a way that's kind of, and they say, I'm making a hand gesture that I
love
feel
this.
glad
We're
people
doing
can't
wax
see.
on, wax off, which is
Yes,
where a lot
they're
of-
touching you and they're like, do you like that? As a human giver, what do you say?
So yes. So, so good.
Yep. And his ego matters so much more than our pleasure does.
Right.
Part of the complexity of understanding what pleasure even feels like in our bodies, much less whether or not we're allowed to feel pleasure. That's like an additional layer of the conversation. But understanding what pleasure feels like is that ambivalence is normal. And it's almost inevitable. If you were raised in a culture that taught you that sex is shameful, dirty, and disgusting, except under these very limited circumstances, then anything that feels sex-related is also going to activate the part of your brain that's worried that maybe this is shameful, dirty, or disgusting.
Right.
And this is grounded in how our brain actually works. There's a thing called the dual control mechanism, where there's a sexual accelerator that responds to all the sexy things that are happening. So this is everything in your 5 basic senses, everything you see, hear, smell, touch, taste, and crucially, everything you think, believe, or imagine, and your body sensations. All that stuff goes up to your brain and activates the turn on signal that many of us are familiar with. And at the same time, in parallel, in addition to an accelerator, you have a brake, which notices all the good reasons not to be turned on right now. Everything with your basic senses, everything you see, hear, smell, touch, taste, and everything you think, believe, or imagine or feel inside your body that your brain interprets as a potential threat. And that brake sends a turn off signal. So arousal and pleasure are this dual process of turning on the ons, but also turning off the offs. And a lot of us know about the accelerator and have never heard of the brake.
Exactly.
And it turns out when people are struggling, the usual advice is to add more stimulation to the accelerator, like handcuffs and role play and porn. And if those things are for you, then great, go ahead. And it turns out when people are struggling, it's much more often necessary not to add stimulation to the accelerator, but to reduce stimulation to the brakes, which is all that cultural stuff, how we feel about our body, how we feel about sex itself, how we feel about like whether or not a woman is allowed to experience sexual pleasure and prioritize it in her life. Let's be lab rats, and the researchers are going to painlessly implant a probe into our nucleus accumbens shell, which has a thing called an affective keyboard. And the affective keyboard just means like, it's like a keyboard on a piano, where like it goes from one place and it travels to another. So when you zap the front of the affective keyboard, you get positive approach motivation, which in a rat looks like, ooh, what's that? Ooh, what's that? One of my favorite things is pretending to be a rat. It just turned into like a thing in my life. Ooh, what's that? Curious, approach, exploration, motivation. And when you zap the back of the nucleus accumbens shell, you get avoidance motivation, which is, what the hell is that? Where these foot motions are stamping to kick up dust. It's defensive digging to get the dust in the face of the predator like a snake. There's videos online of rats doing this, and it totally works. Like, get away from me. This is moving away. Motivation, avoidance, fear, stress. But if we, the lab rat, with the little probe in our brain, move into what I call the rat spa, so it is dark and silent, and it smells familiar. It's just the most like relaxing. Imagine yourself like after a spectacular massage, and you're in the restroom, and you can like see the ocean. It's just this is my personal
Right. This
like,
is your
most
happy
relaxed
space
that you get. Yeah, this is when they zap the front of the nucleus accumbens. What they get is, ooh, what's that? And in this rat spa, which the researchers just call the home environment, when they zap the back of the nucleus accumbens, what does the rat do?
It still wants to be there.
No? Ooh,
Yeah.
what's that? Yeah. Approach motivation. When you are in that more relaxed, positive, non-stressed state of mind, your 90% of that organ in your brain becomes devoted to approach motivation, even in response to stimuli that in a different context it responded to as a threat to be avoided.
Right.
But wait, there's more.
Yes.
Because
yes.
we, as lab rats, we move from the rat spa into, it is brightly lit. The music is playing really loudly, but not even just at a stable volume. It'll be loud and then quiet. So you can't even just like adjust to it. And you are a introverted bookworm at the worst nightclub in the world. They're literally playing Iggy Pop and they zap the front of your nucleus accumbens, which in every other setting has resulted in, ooh, what's that? Approach, curious motivation. But here, when you're so stressed out, even zapping the front of the nucleus accumbens makes you go, ah, what the hell is that? And want to move away from it. When you are in a stressed out, unsafe state of mind, 90% of this organ in your brain becomes devoted to avoidance motivation, even in response to stimuli that in a different context, it would have approached with curiosity. So there's almost nothing. If you're in a stressed out enough state of mind, there is almost nothing even a beloved, sexy partner can do that's going to feel pleasurable. If your best friend invites you to a party, you say yes because it's your best friend in a party. But maybe as the date approaches, you start thinking, I'm going to have to organize childcare. There's going to be all this traffic. Am I really going to feel like putting on my party clothes at the end of a long week? But you said you would, and so you put on your party clothes and you show up to the party. And what usually happens?
Well, if it's my best friend, I'm definitely going to have a great time once I'm there. Yeah.
There you go.
Right.
If you're having fun at the party, you're doing it right.
Yeah.
So, like, even if you're a bit like, okay, I mean, I guess we said we would. We scheduled our date night, like the sex therapist said. And you sort of like you're chucking the last of the toys in the toy boxes and you're carrying the last load of laundry up with you into the bedroom. And you get there and you're like, okay, fine. But you let your skin touch your partner's skin and your body wakes up and goes, oh, right. I really like this.
Yeah.
I really like this person. You're doing it right.
Yeah, definitely.
But if you show up and you don't like the sex you are having, there's no amount of being like totally horny for parties that's going to make that party worth going to. I have a friend who's a sex therapist and researcher, Peggy Kleinplatz, and what she often says is that low desire is often evidence of good judgment.
Ooh, shit.
The way she asks it of her own sex therapy clients is what kind of sex is worth wanting.
Yeah. God,
which is
good.
like you were moving in that direction where you're like, I better find out what I even like.
Yes, absolutely.
Stress and body image, those are the big, almost universal two things that hit women's breaks in particular. So when you have body self-criticism and somebody is looking at or touching your body, everything you imagine they see, everything you imagine they feel activates those self-critical thoughts. And do self-critical thoughts about your body activate the accelerator? Or do self-critical thoughts activate the brakes?
The brakes, for sure.
Yeah. So if you are activating self-critical thoughts at the same time that you are doing sexy things, the brakes are just going to be on, and that's going to prevent you from becoming more aroused, from experiencing more pleasure, and usually getting to orgasm. So if you train yourself to not activate the brakes, to not have those self-critical thoughts, they're going to come floating in because we live in a culture that still not only rewards us for conforming with the culturally constructed aspirational ideal, but punishes us when we don't conform to the culturally constructed aspirational ideal. And so we're afraid that if we accept our bodies as they are, somebody out there is going to come and get us and yell at us and be like, how dare you love your body exactly the way it is? How dare you not try to change your shape and size? So it takes practice. I often recommend people do the mirror activity where they stand naked in front of a mirror and write down everything they see that they like. And the first time you do it, it might be like your kneecaps.
Yep.
It might be like your spirit because you can see it in your eyes or your eyebrows or any one thing. But you keep doing it every day. You look at what you like. And this will gradually build up. You'll be able to see your body clearly without the distorting cultural lenses of what my sister calls the bikini industrial complex.
Right.
that really wants you to conform to one specific body type and says that if you don't fit that body type, then you literally should be ashamed of yourself and you are not allowed to access pleasure. So the more you're like, actually, my body's a frackin' miracle. And what an enormous gift that is the one thing I have on the day that I'm born that I will still have with me on the day that I die. Hooray. It's going to make being on top and being seen precisely as you are not hit the brakes and even actively stimulate the accelerator.
Yeah, for sure.
So first of all, it's not up to me to decide what's right or wrong for someone.
Right.
So if people are just like, nope, that isn't right, and I'm just not going to do it, cool. And if you're like, I feel like there might be something there for me, like I can learn how to communicate better with my partner if I know more about what pleasure feels like for me, or I might feel more in control of my sexuality if I know what pleasure feels like in my body. But we know that when people masturbate, and I actually was asked the question not that long ago by a millennial who was like, so everybody in high school said that if you masturbate to orgasm by yourself, you won't be able to have an orgasm with a partner. Is that true? The opposite is true. No, if you masturbate to orgasm, you are teaching your body what pleasure feels like, so that when you get to a connection with a partner and like this big chunk of your brain transitions away from your own pleasure onto like making sure that your partner's needs and expectations are being met, like you at least have the grounding of recognizing the sensations in your body and knowing whether or not they're pleasurable, which is where we started, knowing what pleasure feels like for you. So that when your partner asks, do you like that? At least you know the answer.
Right.
And if the answer is no, instead of being like, nope, that doesn't feel good, what you can say is, you know what I really love is a little less pressure and a little more speed.
Yeah.
And then reward them for doing it in a way that is a better fit for you. And you don't have to worry about them feeling criticized because you're not criticizing. You're just asking for what feels best for you. And they get to do the thing that feels best for you. And if your partner is worth being with, they are interested in your pleasure.
I think you guys know this, but in case you don't, my happy place is on the beach. Actually, that's not enough. My happy place is on the beach with an iced coffee in my hand. What a vibe. There are a lot of beaches out there, but there's only one people call the beach. Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, is made up of 14 coastal communities and 60 miles of sunny beaches. Together, they create a place that makes you feel like you belong. Shine and dine in a foodie haven with oceanfront patios, fresh seafood, low country classics, and southern favorites. Plus, my favorite, you can listen to live music any day of the year, outside at laid-back beach bars, at world-renowned theaters, or right on the boardwalk. You belong at Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. Plan your trip to the beach at visitmyrtlebeach.com. My favorite part about Thrive Market is that I don't have to think about it. As a mom of 4 kids trying to get dinner on the table, make sure there are enough snacks in the pantry and items to fill their lunch boxes, it is so nice to not have to think about whether or not the ingredients in what I'm shopping for are actually good for my family. This is the beauty of Thrive Market. It's your favorite health food store, but online and way more affordable. Not only can I get my favorite products, but I also always find brand new ones that I didn't know existed. Things like Ora Bora sparkling water or Unreal dark chocolate bars with coconut. Oh my gosh, have you guys had those? Thrive has supplements, household items, and clean beauty too. All of their items are vetted and all way more affordable than you think. Skip the junk without overspending. Head to thrivemarket.com/rach to get 30% off your first order and a free $60 gift. That's thrivemarket.com/rach, thrivemarket.com/RACH.
Marriage wasn't really held on this in a high regard for me. And so I thought, well, I I would do like connection and relationships. And I thought, well, let's see what happens. I'm not going to put this pressure on myself to find the one. I'm really going to try to support myself and find a career that I love. And along the way, if a relationship works, that would be fantastic. But I kept finding myself getting into relationships with men that were wonderful men in the beginning, and the sex was fun, meaning it was satisfying. And what I've come to find out is the honeymoon phase is the honeymoon phase for a goddamn reason.
Right.
It's a biological condition that lasts 6 months to 2 years.
Right.
In every relationship, like the most loving people, it's just going to take a little bit of work to keep it hot, to keep it going, to keep it fresh. But no one was talking about that back then. So I just thought, here I am with this wonderful man, and it's been about 6 months, 2 years, like clockwork. And I thought, how do you have sex with one person for the rest of your life? This isn't as interesting anymore. I'm not as hot for him. The relationship, and at the time, I didn't know about that relationships take work. And that you can work on sex and you can work on communication and intimacy, and that having bad sex, and to me that just meant like I didn't have high desire anymore. I wasn't really attracted to him anymore. He felt like my best friend, which was great, but it's really not that hot. And I just thought, well, that must mean the relationship's over. Time to move on, because how could I endure this forever? Like, right? So I kept getting into these patterns, and then it was about like really, when I started this podcast about 18 years ago, it was like 2005, and I thought, well, you know, every time you do something creative and artistic, you have to be fully passionate about it, or you can't, like, I want to be interested in this. I thought, I want to get to the bottom of sex and relationships, because maybe I'm missing something. Like maybe there's a secret. There's a secret to having sex where you want to have sex all the time with the same person. You're both having pleasure and orgasms, and you're communicating well, and you've learned how to do life together. Because there are, even though half of marriages end in divorce, there are some happy people.
The other half, right?
Like, what are they doing? Like, what I want to know, and I'm going to bring them into this podcasting thing, and start talking to them just on audio, so we can get, because like I knew it was like there's an anonymity to that, and I thought, what could I find out? And so that was how I got into this. And I was not the expert. I was really just had open ears and open heart. And I'm like, what? And I started asking people. Like the first time I did this podcast was in San Francisco, where I was living. And I invited like 10 people over. All my like gay, straight, married, single, dating online, married for 20 years. I started asking them. And I thought after that first day, I started getting some answers. But I also realized this is, we all need this information. There's something here. And I started on the path of the podcast, Sex with Emily. Cool. That's how I started. And then I went to grad school and got a doctorate in human sexuality. And that was the whole path.
Wow.
I was faking orgasms. I was faking pleasure. I was performative. I was really like doing what I thought my partner wanted. And then I realized that like actually self-love and masturbation and figuring out my own, like there's two answers that came to me. The first one is like, how could I expect somebody else to know my body and what felt good if I have never, and not only that, I have shame. I don't want to look between my legs. I don't really know what's happening. I expected my partners to know everything. So I thought, I'm going to figure this thing out. No matter what shame and weirdness I have around it, I'm going to give myself pleasure, and I'm going to figure that out. So to me, I think that was foundational, is that making peace with my body, because it's not just about an orgasm. It's about like, listen, if we're walking around and I know you talk about this, not loving our bodies and not feeling confident, not feeling good in it. How do we expect that we're going to get into a bedroom with somebody and be like, okay, here I am naked.
Way.
I'm ready to go. There's no way.
Right.
So that was probably the first thing. And the other thing that I learned early on was that there's all these untruths about sex, that there's all these myths, and I believed all of them.
What are some of those?
So the first one that came to me is that men want more sex than women, and that women are sort of like not really meant to be sexual, and that we were just sort of going along with men's pleasure. And then I came to find out that every time I talked to women, and there's like studies that we want it too. We deserve it too, of course. So I think that I remember learning those in the first, very early on, and thinking like, this is really crucial for women and for everybody to understand our bodies and take it into our own hands. A lot of people grew up in very, religious or restrictive backgrounds where there's literally, think about this, there is no talk about pleasure when it comes to sex. In fact, it's don't have sex. Wait till you are married. It's only for procreation, actually. Don't have sex at all. And if you do have sex, you might get pregnant or get STDs or an STI. So it's fear-based.
Or burn in hell.
Literally burn in hell. And if you masturbate, you're going to grow hair on your palms.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So everything we're told about sex is shameful, wrong, don't do it. Zero information about pleasure. So then you go to have sex and you're like, well, I know it's this like secret thing that I've been told I shouldn't want to do and shouldn't have to do, but I want to do it because I've been told that I shouldn't have to do it. Now I'm doing it, but like, it's just so confusing. So pleasure. Yeah. This whole talk about pleasure, and this is all, so then my mission has become on the planet after I realized this, is get people to prioritize pleasure and liberate the conversation around sex. Like where in our life, because also here's the thing about pleasure, is that pleasure is it's so conditional. Like we think like, oh, I don't deserve pleasure unless I check these 10 things off the list, unless I work out today, that I can have dessert, unless I whatever. And I do. And so pleasure is productive actually. So what I talk about in my book too is that it's like, pleasure is productivity. When we restrict pleasure, we're going to be less productive. But if you can find ways to weave it into your life, like I actually have like pleasure principles where I look at my life and I say, okay, what am I doing this week for me? And I look at it and I'll say, because I then have a list of things that I know that like are going to be those joyful moments. And it could be like seeing a friend for lunch, going for a walk, getting a massage, nature, usually something to do with nature or something. And I'm like, where is that coming? Where is that going to be worked into this week? Because I was just so tired of so much of my life being about work and other things, and more pleasure in your life allows your body to be relaxed more, your nervous system to be calmer and more open to intimacy and pleasure and connection. Right. People always want a number like, is it twice a week or is it once a week? And I have a hard time with numbers, but what I can say is, and this might make a lot of people feel a little bit better now, that in every single relationship, there is a high desire partner and a low desire partner. There's always going to be someone who wants more sex than the other one. So It's going to be hard to say but what I ask each couple, I implore each couple to do is to figure out what number feels right for them. So I'm going to say that for many couples, once a month isn't enough. Yeah. I'll give you that number, okay? Yeah. And I think for many, once a week is probably like you're good. Like that's a good, like you're doing.
If you got kids,
like really, I'm just so. It is hard. No one tells you this either. Like there should be a whole like how to work the sex in when you have kids, because we talk about everything else, like how to work out when you have kids,
right?
How to see your friends when you have kids, like how do you actually? It's not easy. It's not even easy when you don't have kids, but when you have kids, it's like, and when you have 4 kids, like I don't even know, Rachel.
It's all about it's a daytime sex. It's when the kids are at school. That's your option.
But that's it. Right. You got to work around it though, because here's the other thing that we do wrong with sex and why we're not having enough sex. And I can go back to the high desire, low desire partner, how you have to like negotiate times, because a lot of people listening right now are thinking like, well, I want it 4 times and my partner only wants it once. And that's why I talk a lot about scheduling sex, making it. And I know that does not sound sexy, but for many people, it's like, we've got kids, we're exhausted. If you think like I'm having sex after 10 o'clock at night, after we've had dinner, I've been doing the dishes, put the kids out, like I'm exhausted. It's never going to happen. But most of us don't even think to troubleshoot sex or to like think about it, reverse engineer it. And you just like, why aren't we having it? Why aren't we having it? Well, because you were trying every night at 10:30 when I'm exhausted and the house is still a mess or whatever it is. So we got to figure out what time is right for us. And if we know the kids are at school and we've got 45 minutes until we have to do something else, that's when you do it.
Absolutely. Yeah.
You work around it because it's important, because you prioritize it. You're not just waiting for this magic moment that's never going to come. We think that sex is going to we're just going to have that spark and it's going to hit us over the head desire. Like, I'm just going to be in the mood like I always was at the beginning. We're always going back to the honeymoon phase. And I can't emphasize this enough. It's like we keep trying to chase that spark that existed because of the feel-good chemicals in our brain. Yeah. We're popping all around. Like they look at the brainwave patterns of people on cocaine and people falling in love.
I've heard this.
And it's the same.
It's the same.
Okay?
Yeah.
So you know what happens after you come up, you come down, and you got to find other ways to spark it. So I've realized now, and I just wrote this, I have a book. So it's called Sex IQ. So I was writing this book, I realized this is literally happening. I was like, okay, I'll write down the top questions I got asked over 2 decades. It's going to be the place, the Bible, the people can go for all the sex information. But I was writing and I was like, there's so many more factors that are contributing to it. Like you could open up to the oral chapter and it will have my best tips, or the anal chapter, all the questions. But I realized that sex is so complex that there are different layers, and everything impacts our sexual health. So for example, if I am not taking care of my health, if I'm not moving my body, I'm not exercising, there's less blood flow. If I have less blood flow, I mean, if I'm a man or a woman, less blood flow, there's going to be less, my pelvic floor, my clitoris, there's going to be less enjoyment. There's going to be less energy to have sex. So that's going to decrease my desire. And my desire, my arousal, my desire for sex, to want, I'm not even thinking about it because I'm feeling bad in my body, I'm feeling sluggish. If I'm eating a lot of foods that don't make me feel good and I'm bloated and I'm definitely not going to want to have sex. That's the health part of it. And then I think, okay, but also, what if I am having some resentments around my partner? Like, I'm super fucking pissed because they said that they were going to be doing these things and making efforts in areas that they didn't, or they broke a promise to me. Well, there's no way that.
Yes.
So I created these pillars of sex IQ, and people can look at this and just think, like, and I have a quiz. You got like, where am I right now on my sexual intelligence level? And there's 5 pillars that I ask people to look at in their life that are all going to contribute to your ability to be aroused and turned on. Because I can tell you sex positions, I can tell you how to talk dirty, I can tell you what toys to buy, what lubes to buy.
Right.
I can tell everyone that, and that's all there. But this is the underlying holistic approach to sexuality that I think a lot of people will help them feel, first of all, so much better.
Right.
Like if you're on an antidepressant or you've been on the birth control pill, you're going to have a problem being aroused and turned on. And I want you to know that it's not your fault.
Ever wondered what's really in your cleaning products? Many contain hidden chemicals tied to hormone issues, skin irritation, and breathing problems. Switching to safer options is easier than you think. Branch Basics is more than just cleaning. It's about transforming your home into a safer, healthier space. Made from plant and mineral-based ingredients, Branch Basics is human-safe and biodegradable, making it perfect for families, especially those with babies, kids, or pets. I have been using Branch Basics Oxygen Boost for, honestly, as long as I've known my husband. He can't handle bleach. He has allergic reactions to it, and the Oxygen Boost makes our whites super white without us having to use a harsh chemical. Human-safe cleaning isn't a luxury. It's now more accessible than ever. Shop Branch Basic products today, available on Amazon and branchbasics.com. And for a limited time, use code HOLLIS at branchbasics.com for 15% off your next order. Make the swap that truly matters. Clean your home without compromising your health with Branch Basics. Step into the freedom of summer with jewelry that reflects who you are and where you're going. From sunrise to sunset, Pandora Jewelry transports you to paradise. No passport required. From ocean charms to colorful tennis bracelets, shop new arrivals to add to your summer staples. Be unmissable this summer with vacation-ready designs. Everyone loves adding a little something fun to their wardrobe during the summer, and accessories are the easy go-to staple that will jazz up any outfit. Feel it, live it, embrace it. Be love. Shop in-store or online at pandora.net to discover new styles.
Both of us were already very interested in transformation and people really enjoying being alive. And we were both doing transformational work when we met. And I specialized in movement and the language of the body that comes through movement and how that can add to a person's knowledge of themselves and what they want to choose in life. And Gay came from having developed energy work and breath work. And when we met, we said, wow, what a
and the way we met was, I mean, it was a prophecy of what was to come, because I spent a lot of my time in my 20s trying to figure out how to create happiness internally, how to feel good inside. But then when I got into my 30s, I realized that my relationship life was basically all had the trajectory of the Titanic. They would all start with great fanfare, but then they'd hit the iceberg 6 months later. And it took me about 10 of those in my 20s to realize, oh, wait a minute, I'm the iceberg.
Right.
But I had this real epiphany a month before I met Katie. I had a kind of a download. I had been in this on and off relationship for 5 years, and I was in the middle of an argument with the woman whose name was Carol, and I suddenly had this, I don't know where it came from, but I had a realization that this wasn't our 500th argument. It was our 500th version of the same argument. And suddenly it dawned on me, wait a minute, they all have the same pattern. What's the pattern? And I realized the pattern was that one of us would not be telling the truth to the other one about something important. And it could be a feeling inside, or it could be something we've done, but I would not tell the truth to the person. I would hide the truth, and then I would begin to devalue them. They would look less trustworthy, and I didn't realize it was because I was hiding the truth from them that I had to devalue them. And I also had this bad habit of every time I would get into a relationship hassle, I would always kind of go for the victim position. Why are you doing this to me? Why are you always doing this to me? And the other person would always be busily doing the same thing, And so we would get into these things about whose fault it was, and that would go on for ages sometimes. And the third thing I realized in this download I got was that a lot of my relationship problems came from something internal in me, that I wasn't expressing my own full creativity and my own genius. And because I wasn't expressing myself creatively, I blamed the other person for oppressing my creativity. Holding me back. And this was the thing that happened. And so I was in the middle of that, and I realized, there's a simple solution to those three things. One is always tell the truth about everything in your relationships. Number two, instead of going for the victim position, take responsibility for it. Figure out why I'm dreaming up this kind of conflict. Why would I create this conflict right now? And instead of blaming it on the other person. And the third thing was, I got to make a bigger commitment to my creativity so I don't blame other people for limiting my creativity. So with this fresh in my mind, that relationship was over for me when I realized that. And so anyway, I went out to California the next month, and I was going to give a talk at the Institute of Transpersonal Psychology. And it was, I'd given workshops there before. It was a place where a bunch of people were getting their PhDs in transpersonal psychology. And so I walked into this room, probably 50 people, and they were all waiting there for me to start the thing. And I saw this woman across the way, and she was probably 50 feet away, but she had this aura about her. She just had this special glow about her, and I'd never seen anything quite like that. And so I made this mental note. I got to find some way to meet her. I don't know anything about her, but she's just too yummy to not go over there, And so anyway, I started the workshop and had my, after a while, we took a break. And Katie, unbeknownst to me, was not only getting her PhD there, she was one of the professors there because she was working off some of her fees by being the movement therapy professor there. So anyway, during the break, I didn't have to go over to her because she came over to me. And she now enters the conversation.
So I want to back up just a moment to the beginning of the workshop, because it was in a very strange place where I got my PhD. The Institute of Transpersonal Psychology was held in the basement of a place called Vallombrosa in Menlo Park. And you could see the bottom part of people walking by because they had windows that you could just see the bottom parts of their bodies. And it was a dojo. So there were mats on the floor and people were sitting on a circle. And so just to give you the setting, because it was a little bit California.
Yeah.
And so when Gay was looking around the circle of about 50 people, I could see that he was checking out people's energy. And I could do that, but I'd never seen anybody else doing that. And so I was very interested in what he was doing as he was moving around the circle. And then he came past me and then came back. and we had what I now call a recognition. We recognized each other, and there was this profound thing that happened. And then he went on, and he hadn't even opened his mouth yet. And so when he started to talk, I thought, first of all, this is the funniest guy I've ever heard, and this is the smartest guy I've ever heard. And I still have the notebook of the notes that I took that weekend with my fountain pen, my very careful. So I thought, this is so fascinating. So mostly I fell in love with your consciousness first. And then when I went up over the break, I had a question to ask him. So I came up over the break and I started to ask him, and I never got the question out of my mouth because the first thing he said to me was,
I'm very attracted to you. When somebody does say something that's absolutely straight on, like I'm scared or I'm angry or I'm sad, the other person never argues with that. They have the opportunity to drop down into a level of authenticity themselves. Not everybody takes that opportunity, but that does happen. And when it happens, it's real magic because often here's a kind of a strange thing that I learned after doing marriage and relationship work for a few years. Almost everybody, they come in arguing, but then when they get down to the deepest level, they find out that they were both afraid of the same thing.
Ooh.
Like both people are afraid of abandonment, but they yell at each other out of the anger level based on that old fear, but they don't realize that both of them have the same fear.
Wow.
And that's actually one of the gifts of getting into a close relationship is that you can heal the wound that both of you have.
Wow. Do you find that often couples have the same wound?
Yeah, very often.
Oh, wow.
And they've learned to deal with it in different ways depending on their family situation. So like I learned to be super responsible because that worked in my family. And it was kind of the only role that was left. But that wasn't the way that Gay really, you became kind of a loner and
you have the chance of waking up out of the pattern and actually making a choice to say, okay, I want to be a fully evolved human being. I want to be able to be fully close to another person, and I want to be completely my own person too. And it's possible to have both of those things. It just takes a lot of work and dedication to both of them.
That work, though, is really one choice at a time.
Oh, that's good.
And that choice, because we think, it's so,
right.
How can I possibly get there? And the choice to interrupt a pattern and to do something different. So if you're a glommer, really likes to get close, to spend time alone without any input from anybody else, just, a little 10 minutes at a time, just seeing what occurs for me when I'm just by myself. What do I want? What do I enjoy? What do I want to choose? Because when Gay and I got together, I was like a surgical nurse. I could tell what he wanted before he knew what he wanted. But before he would say, what do you want? And I go, and I didn't actually know how to know what I wanted. It was that fundamental. And so really, just making choices like, what do I want to eat? Where do I want to go? What do I want to read? Rather than when, oh, sure, honey. Rather than doing the, oh, sure, just those one choice at a time really begins to shift and to give you a sense of confidence of, oh, that one worked out. Or, oh, I see that didn't quite work. So I make a little adjustment or I inquire more deeply. So it can be fun. Not hard work, because I think one of the big mythologies about relationship is,
it's hard.
Have your
Marriage
fun
is hard
make us
work.
compromise.
Right.
And we've found that that's just bunk. I think that's just an excuse for not taking responsibility for having what you want and asking for what you want and navigating that.
What people need to realize is that two individuals are actually make 200% responsibility.
This idea blew my mind.
Yeah. One person is 100% and the other person is 100%. But there's a delusion that people, one person is 50 and the other person is 50 and they make 100. And that's erroneous because you're an individual. The partner is a full evolved individual. And if the person steps out of that realization and says, you're making me miserable, they're going below the line of taking full responsibility. The only way out of situations like that is for both people to own it and say, okay, why am I creating this argument right now? Rather than it's your fault.
Yeah.
What am I feeling? What's missing in me that's causing me to have this kind of argument with you?
And what is there to learn from this? Because people mistake responsibility for blame or burden. But what we've discovered is that when you take responsibility, you're actually reclaiming your creativity. Because we're always creating, but it's mostly unconscious. And the pattern of I'm the victim here, and that's what I'm committed my creativity to, is proving I'm the victim. But if I actually take responsibility, which is I'm responsible for this, what am I doing? That whole getting curious about looking at the result and saying, how am I contributing to this? What just arose? Oh, that reminded me of my interactions with my brother. And I just popped right out of my mouth. Oh, okay. But underneath that, what I really want is. So you start realizing that responsibility is intimately tied to creativity.
Well, it sounds to me like we need y'all to explain your definition of creativity, because this sounds so much deeper and richer than what I'm going to go paint. I'm going to go write. I'm going to take a photograph.
Right.
Creativity sounds like everything.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it goes into how you live every moment of your life. Like Katie is a wonderful chef, and I love to watch her make food because it's like watching Picasso paint or watching Leonard Bernstein create a symphony or something. It's, she touches everything, and it's like everything gets its little bit of love as she's making lunch. And so she's expressing her genius through that way. But she can also sit down and write a poem or do other things too. So creativity, you need to think of it almost like life energy. It's that juice that makes us feel alive. And we're all living representatives of the universe itself, because we're all made of the same particles that everything else is made of. They're just expressed in different ways, but everything is made out of the same stuff. And the universe itself is busily creating like crazy all the time. Like there's a place out in the universe where it's giving birth to 32 new suns, S-U-N-S, per second. 32 new suns are pouring out of this hot spot. Things like our sun, big things. The entire universe at the moment of the Big Bang was compressed into this tiny little thing the size of a marble. And then there was this gigantic explosion, and then everything went every which way. And then suddenly here we are 15 billion years later, coming down the pike in evolution to the place where we can actually have connections with each other that are not purely based on instinct.
Yes.
And that now we can figure out
survival.
Who do I want to be? How do I need to be to have successful relationship? And we can begin to do these things consciously. Life really begins in a way the moment you have that first conscious, positive thought about how you want to be, rather than how you have to be, or how you should be, or something like that.
The Rachel Hollis podcast is produced by me, Rachel Hollis. It's edited by Andrew Weller and Jack Noble.
Road trips are all about the sights, the sounds, and the snacks. So pack the ultimate road trip fuel, Blue Diamond Almonds. This summer, they're your chance to win a new car. Buy any 12-ounce or larger bag, enter the code at bdroadtrip.com, and you could score thousands of prizes, including a new set of wheels. Hit the road with Blue Diamond. No purchase necessary. End September 15th. Open to 50 U.S. and D.C. 18 years or older. For rules, including free entry method, visit bdroadtrip.com. Void where prohibited. Grand prize awarded as $50,000 cash via PayPal. This promotion is in no way sponsored, endorsed, administered by, or associated with PayPal Inc.
Sun's out, snacks out. And My Mochi ice cream is your go-to summer treat. My Mochi's bite-sized beauties are only around 70 calories each. They're packed with cool, creamy ice cream and wrapped with soft, chewy dough. Totally satisfying, perfectly portioned, and ready to cool you down with every delicious bite. My Mochi ice cream fits your summer vibe. Treat yourself smart with a joyfully chill sensation of My Mochi. Look for the purple box of My Mochi at Walmart or visit mymochi.com to find a store near you.